So you mentioned there's people or things that happen structurally in the mouth, in utero during gestation, 5 weeks in. That's incredible. Give us an example or a couple examples of structurally what can happen that's negative in the mouth structure that carries with us through our life and creates the musculoskeletal issues and the breathing issues.
I feel like when we say breathing, we go to the diaphragm. Everybody knows it, right? Breath work. And some people have struggled with that, whether they've dealt with mold or they can't breathe well and they're stuck. Or their fight flight trauma, the diaphragm is such an area in the belly that when it doesn't work, when it's tense, when it's not functioning for us, it freezes us and it doesn't allow us to get that oxygen and that blood flow. So the diaphragm actually forms in the throat at 5 weeks gestation. So again, what does that mean, gestation? It just means like if you were conceived, when you were conceived, if you're listening to us now, you were conceived. Surprise, surprise. You were born if you're watching this. Well, you were conceived. Then 5 weeks later, your diaphragm formed right here. It's pretty wild. At 6 weeks, it makes its way into the chest. And then at 8 weeks, it makes its way to where it lives now. Well, there's another organ that forms a week later, 6 weeks, and that's the kidney. That forms in the sacrum, right? In the waist, below the waist, in the pelvis. Then that makes, so interestingly, whereas the diaphragm goes down, the kidney comes up. But you know what? All of these have one connecting area that really makes it come together, and that is the mouth. The pharyngeal arches form at 4 or 5 weeks. So when there is formation issue there, narrow palate, tongue tie, any of these things that cause tongue tie, TMJ, or any of these tension points, well, that tight tissue there and the diaphragm that forms right there, the descent of the diaphragm down doesn't move as easily. And we start as these curled up in the fetal position beings. So some of you might not think about it this way, but if your kidney forms in your pelvis, think about where that is. When you're curled up, that's near your mouth. So our tissues are kindred. And it's not how I figured this out. I figured this out with the bodies in front of me, starting with my daughter, and then the next one. And then pretty soon I was looking in the mouths of everybody. Once I saw this pattern repeat itself with so many people, I then started to reverse engineer what's going on. That's when I studied embryology. I am not that intelligent that I could figure that out, but I am intuitive and I can tune in and I can then reverse engineer what I was given via downloads to then make it into a codified system. That is why I feel I've been given this place of complex cases. And so through that, we have the epicenter of the mouth that creates tension through the whole body. And when that torsional cyclone or tornado of tension happens, it spins us into this asymmetry, but it also compresses us, much like a spring. If you take a spring and it's compressed, you don't have this buoyant mechanism of us walking around. We walk around with gravity pulls and pulls. So with my phase shift work, one of my favorite analogies is that it takes a compressed spring and it decompresses it. So then we have this spring-like buoyancy where gravity does not win. We partner with gravity, and we then even begin to feel like we're levitating or escaping these confines that normally would bring us down to the earth.
What are I really like what I'm hearing, and it's fascinating, and I know our listeners are fascinated. And, it speaks to kind of the symmetry with cranial sacral work and understanding the mandible and the jaw and this diaphragmatic piece in the pelvis. What are some symptoms that I might have and not even know it's related to my birth? So give me some ideas of how I would know there's some issues here or in the mandible. What would I be looking for or thinking through?
Singers have this amazing ability to produce sound, So it's amazing when some of the people out here are phenomenally excelling people who will push past limitations. So that's why I wanted to say that some of you are walking around feeling good, but I'm talking about optimization. And sometimes you don't know how free you are until you find a greater level of freedom. So I've had singers come in, really renowned singers, really renowned athletes, and until their voice gets unlocked, their throat bone gets unlocked, they didn't realize they were straining. So I find people, they produce sound more easily. They can hit different notes more easily. So what does it take to produce sound? What does it take to sing those notes? Or for a runner, does your belly double up in tension? Do you get, rigid calf muscles, rigid hamstrings? Can you touch your toes? Your inner thigh muscles, for those who aren't ballerinas and who aren't working on those inner thigh muscles, how hard is it for you to do that inner thigh muscle stretch like the splits? How about your traps? Nobody walks around almost with free traps and those muscles, gravity pulling ourselves to the ground like this. Some people say forward head posture is because of computers, text neck. You know what? I usually see that's the second layer. The first layer is the tension that happens in utero in the mouth. Like I mentioned before, TMJ, or issues with swallowing, issues with speech, issues with, like, little baby that I saw today who was having trouble feeding, but then you grow up and you could have trouble choking on solids. Then they could have trouble digesting food, pooping, getting that bowel movement to come through. And then we could talk about energy deprivation, fatigue, lethargy, adrenal fatigue, thyroid conditions that can sometimes be because the mouth and the thyroid are very closely related. So we can say energy, we can say tension, we can say even headaches. There's a whole list. Reflux, heartburn. We could say the inability for us to have good pelvic floor mobility and stability. So we can't, necessarily hold when we need to go potty. We can also say that some people deal with the vision problems, sensory issues. So many kids, so many adults, they don't know that when they use their vision, there's bright lights, then they try to use their tongue at the same time, and all of a sudden they get tension there. So phase shift is a pretty unusual kind of cascade effect that even decouples sensory issues from the body. And I will say, nervous system dysregulation, stress, anxiety, the inability to, like, regulate yourself, and even when breath work sometimes doesn't quite do it. Sometimes NuCalm is hands down one of the best things on the planet for this. There are some people that need this physical path of moving the body, especially the mouth, to a place where the tongue can move more freely so that the vagus nerve can work more properly, so that the body can go into a state of rest and digest versus fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
So as I'm listening to you, Neel, it feels like perhaps you found one of the epicenters to a cascade of a lot of negative experiences for people. And it starts in the mouth. That's fascinating. So we have a track, a new program in priming. It's called Phase Shift with Dr. Neel Bulchandani. You may know him or you may have heard of him, Neel, because it's you. What can we expect, and what do you expect of us in using this new program? What do you want us to do, and what can we expect the outcome to be?
Yeah, well, I am preaching to the choir, whether you're somebody who knows me, or whether you're somebody who's a NuCalm amazing aficionado, or whether you're on here because you somehow found your way through the portal. Like, you're in. So I feel like my biggest expectation is just be yourself. But then when it comes to engaging with phase shift, get ready for what seems subtle and could seem similar to some of what you've seen out there, yet the cascade effect that happens if you follow the steps will be so noticeable in your day-to-day that you're going to kind of do a double take, or you're going to say, I didn't realize I could get that supple, that free, that loose, that malleable, that relaxed. Like, I feel like the kind of feeling would be like when you get out of a hot tub, jacuzzi, and you've had the jet on you and it's massaged some of the muscles, and you might be in there for 20 minutes, you come out, you feel good. So this actually has a dual effect. It's when you go in with this mindset of it doesn't do one thing, it doesn't loosen tight things, it actually regulates floor of mouth tension to change the way that the mouth interacts with the whole body. Then this means it takes a tense state and you might find more ease, but then it takes a too underactive, hypoactive, a drawn down, depressed, or pulled down feeling, and it energizes. So some people might be concerned, if you do this at night, will it interfere with your ability to rest? And I say no. It actually regulates your system, oxygenates you, brings you into a state of looseness, but then also strength so that you can enter into that state of rest very easily. Similarly, when you wake up and you do this, you can find that there are areas that are weak, like your tongue, that you didn't even know that were weak, but now you feel, whoa, it's putting pressure on your palate, and it's this amazing pump that gets this blood flow from head to toe, and you find, whoa, I've got more energy, more clarity, and also you've got more perception. You've got the ability to tap in and focus more. So I feel like here's what not to expect, right? That's sometimes what we need to say. If you're expecting something that tells you to go dig into your jaw muscles, this isn't what we're talking about. If you're talking about something that's telling you to dig in deep to the floor of your mouth, I don't. After years of experimenting, all of that, those are great. But we're talking about something more optimal, something kinder to the body. But you know what? I love kindness, but what I love more than kindness is kindness and excellence. Something that actually works so well that it's more sustainable and you need it less and less. But if you keep up with it, I often find that you stay at that state of optimized. So one more thing, what not to expect, or you will not get out of this. You will not get this form that tells you that your body does not have the ability to heal tremendously. If you're using Newcom, if you're here in front of me, you believe in the body's ability to heal itself, this allows your tongue, your cranium, and your whole body to come in concert with what your heart and what your mind believes, but it does it from a very physiological and neurophysiological perspective. And when we talk about mixing the brain and the body with change and breath, there is a limitless potential of what you'll be able to experience and also accomplish.
In New Calm, Neel, there's a cumulative benefit. So we're balancing the nervous system. We're creating greater resilience on our path to creating greater anti-fragility. We're strengthening the nervous system. This isn't passive acquiescence. This is a cumulative benefit. I suspect that if I were to use this new track, right, in the priming phase shift with Neel Bulchandani, that there's a cumulative benefit to it. Now, I have used it, and I have noticed there's a fatigue factor in my mouth as I'm doing these simple exercises, right? It's not no pain, no gain, but I'm, wow, my mouth is working here. Is there a cumulative benefit for me to use this? And should I anticipate using this on a daily basis so that I can have that looseness, that kind of realignment to some of my structural issues?
Oh, it's such a good question. First of all, I love that you're feeling the soreness, because some people, just that we feel areas that we haven't felt before is actually a good first step. I mean, we're going to walk through some of this, but so many people don't even know they have a floor. They just think we have a tongue, we have a mouth, but they don't know the floor. So I think the first several times you do it is to expect an awakening and an increased awareness of areas in your mouth and in your body, which may bring you an awareness of soreness that probably was there, but we're laying our focus and attention on it. But it beautifully, though, the more you stick with it, the more you keep with this practice, I do believe that's when you start to experience the benefit without soreness. So I often have say that there's like a 3-month ballooning period where you do this daily, you're going to notice so much change. Now, I do see sometimes when I have people do this, although, like, I mean, when I'm saying this, I mean my phase shift. What's never been on this planet before is phase shift partnered with Newcom. I don't even know what it's going to be like when all use this, because you will probably not do what some people will do without the technology, which is you feel really good and then you start to take a day off and then maybe another day off. And some people tell me over so many years, they're like, Neel, I was feeling so good that I was just enjoying life so much that I stopped using it. And then a week later, I started to feel the tension come back to my body. So I did it again. Well, what I actually think is happening here is that we're talking about the dual effect of when the high level physics of Newcom partners with the phase shift, it's going to take people on an experience to where there's no end cap. There's no limit to how much this can help us. Every day brings its stress. Gravity exists every day. It doesn't take a break. So I do believe that we keep this up. We not only get past the soreness that could come, we gain tremendous amount of strength. And like you said, nervous system resilience, that we get to handle more easily the stresses that come our way, mental, physical, and emotional. So you'll find you're even hardier in the face of stress if you keep it up, so that you can really feel that benefit and not have to not feel it.
So this is a daily habit. This is a daily practice for me. All right, so it's 10 minutes. I can do that. You know, the body's capacity for normalization is profound. It's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. But if we did this 6 days in a row, maybe we recoil back to old form habits that seem comfortable, even though they're dysfunctional. So let me articulate that better. We can find comfort in disease. We can find comfort in dysfunction because it's comfortable. It doesn't mean it's right. I can find comfort in a certain posture. It doesn't mean it's right. I'm going to use phase shift. I'm going to do this because I'm committed to it. And I've also worked with you personally, so I know the impact that this has. I go from feeling pedestrian as a human, sore and out of alignment, and then Neel works on me and I feel like I'm floating for days, in literally like I'm walking on a cloud. So I know the benefit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit to myself to use this every morning. I'm going to do the exercises. I'm going to feel some of the fatigue early on, but then I'm going to feel kind of a release and hopefully a more alignment in my spine, my trapezius, and wherever else I hold my tension. Then I'm going to follow that up because I already have a daily practice of using voice coaching with Roger Love. So I'm going to do a lot of work, and I'm going to report back to you in a couple of weeks because I suspect this is going to be an amazing journey. And I know that, like with New Calm, there's a profundity in the beginning because we've normalized whatever stress we carry, and then it's gone and it's profound. It's I can't even believe this. And then we even normalize profound. That's life. So I think maybe in the first few weeks, I will have a profound improvement, and then it'll normalize. But that normalization, I can't stop using it because then I'll recoil perhaps to bad malalignment. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. It's you keep it up because it not only holds you and sustains you and keeps the benefits and keeps you in that state, but it also helps when you need to work harder, like when you need to work on your vocals with Roger Love, or if you're doing Jim Quick's, cognition, memory, and you're trying to enhance your memory, build that up, or you're using Tony's tracks where you're trying to increase your gratitude, but let's just say increase your overall output and performance and dig into those dreams, those aspirations. I think this gives you a state to where you can effort into those other endeavors without having it need to pull from you the way that it might otherwise. So I think it's a great baseline.
Excellent. Okay. So what I'd like to do next, we have a voiceover. we've challenged Dr. Neel Bulchandani to take a physical exercise and use the articulation of his words to express what he wants us to do. That's a big task, okay? And Neel's been working on this for a while, and he's been working with our amazing team led by Dan Celine and Evan and Keith and Deborah. We have an amazing team. We put together an amazing program. It's only 10 minutes long. But what I'd like to do, Neel, is ask you to go through the exercises visually, because we can share the visuals with all of our users as well. So when they're listening to it, if they see at some point what they're supposed to do, I think it'll create greater efficacy and greater compliance. So allow me to hand over the mic to you for a 10-minute visual depiction of walk us through the phase shift and what you'd like us to do while we're doing the exercises on this new program.
Yeah, well, I will gladly accept the mic and the challenge. And, it's a pretty precise flow. As an artist, I always want to tell you more, but I'm going to keep it simple. So those of you who have done some exercises with the tongue and with the mouth, stay tuned. It's not about the one and each individual part. It's the whole. So journey with me and find your place where you're at. You might, if you're sitting or you're standing, you can put your feet flat on the floor. Be aware of the surface beneath your feet. So I will orient you there. Now you can say, where do we go? Well, I want to say one word, which is mandible, but then we're going to say jaw because that's really what we're talking about. Here's your jaw. Inside the jaw, you have the roof of your mouth, the palate, the floor of your mouth, which we're going to call the floor still, and the tongue. Let's find out where our tongue belongs. So we'll start by having you place your tongue on the roof of your mouth to create a suction. And how do you know you're creating suction? Make that sound. Experiments with taking longer to open your mouth. Good. So your tongue on the roof, let's put it up there. And breathe in through the nostrils and out. Good. Orienting your tongue to the roof is the first step. Now, what do you do with the roof of your mouth? There's a lot of real estate up there. I'm going to take you on what I call tongue mapping. This journey is using your tongue like a paintbrush. You're going to take the tip of your tongue and you're going to coat the roof of your mouth like a paintbrush from side to side and front to back. But now we're going to take it one step further, and I'm going to have you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, and I'm going to have you slide your tongue back, making contact, keeping contact with the roof of your mouth until you can't keep it up there anymore. So your tongue is moving back, all the way back towards the soft palate until it drops off. Good. But because this is whole body, we're going to take a little break like we do in the tracks, and I'm going to have you go ahead and return your tongue to the roof, and then be aware of where your feet are touching the ground. And breathe. Good. Now with your tongue to the roof, we're going to actually elicit a stretch. So keeping your tongue up on the roof, I'm going to have you open your mouth so you create this stretch. Great. You might feel a strain in your jaw. You might feel tension under the tongue. Some of you have more tension, some of you have less. We add in a little bit of a dimension, and we're going to bring out a little bit more color to this. So tongue to the roof. And then we're going to have you tip your head to the right and to the left. Great. How did that feel? We're going to add in one more motion. Tongue to the roof and have you tip your head back and bring it back up. Great. That's a stretch. You're going to feel that not only where it goes in terms of down here, but we're going to feel what that does to the back of our tongues. And also now, I'm going to have you put your tongue back up to the roof and keep your mouth closed and see how that feels to your brain. Sometimes you need to close your eyes, which I encourage you to do, to take 5 to 10 seconds to feel what your tongue feels like touching the roof, and then also direct your awareness to your feet. Good. While you're doing that, pay attention to where your feet have contact with the ground. Where do you feel your feet touching, and where do you feel your feet not touching the ground? And just take stock of that. Good. Some of you are beginning to feel this expansion happen. You're feeling yourself breathe in a way that has more ease. You might feel your breath has slowed down. You might start to feel more blood flow. That's just on tongue mobilization, but that's years in the past. I'm going to bring you to the future now, and we're going to use the tongue to paint the floor. So we're going to have your tongue as a paintbrush again and take the tip to coat the floor back and forth and side to side. So again, put your tongue with the tip facing down into the floor and just lightly brush strokes on the floor of your mouth from front to back and left to right. Feel that terrain. It feels muscular. It feels saliva production, right? Getting acquainted with it for your tongue and the floor of your mouth have not probably done this before. Now, we're going to take the next step. We're going to have you take your tongue with the tip and put a little more pressure down. This is kind of a massage. What I don't want you to do is dig too deep to where you elicit pain, but at the same time, it's more than just the coating, because you want to elicit some pressure into the floor of the mouth to awaken it. So just like before, tip of the tongue down into the floor with some downward pressure in the same motions, front to back, left to right. For those of you who want more instruction, I put this in as well, so you'll hear this part. Some of you might know exactly what I'm talking about, where the floor is, but we'll make it really simple. Your lower teeth, if you feel the inside of your lower teeth with your tongue, lick your teeth, right? You know that's where you are. If you go one step lower, that's the jaw, the mandible. And so you trace the perimeter of the mandible. Now, if you go a little further back, you're on the floor. You can't mistake it. As long as you're not on the teeth or the jaw, you're on the floor. So just to encourage those of you out there who might wonder, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? First of all, it's an exploration. You're doing the right thing. If you have a tongue and you've got it in your mouth and you're pointing it down, you're in the right spot. So now that we've awakened the floor of the mouth, mapped the palate, we've established some vocabulary for our brain to have a place to work. But this is where we need to direct our attention away from the mouth for a moment again, because it's a whole body shift. So we're going to take some time here to direct our attention to our head. Some people need to do just what I do now. I'm going to have you put your hand on your head. Feel the top of your head. Some of you need to feel your head with two hands. We have all these cranial bones. There's too many to list. Just know that if you're making contact with the head, whether it be like this or like this, and we'll go back to this, you're acknowledging one of the main areas that frees up the floor of the mouth. Gentle pressure on the head. Good. So one step further, slide the skin and the fascia on your head to one side and the other, and forward and back. Good. I want to encourage those of you out there who might have issues with this, whether it be in your arms, your hands, or you have tension on your head or high levels of sensitivity. I want you to visualize this. See the top of your head and imagine your hands on your head. Visualization uses the occipital cortex just the same as if you're actually utilizing that same hand placement. So in experience that for a moment, just so you can know that it's also legitimate in terms of how you can engage with phase shift. So once we've done that, I want you to direct your attention again to your tongue. If it's fallen away from the roof of your mouth, put it back up to the roof. And breathe in through the nostrils and out. Here's where I want to say, some of you need to breathe in through your nostrils and out through your mouth versus in through your nostrils and out through your nostrils. Notice I said in through your nostrils. That's pivotal. If you can, if it's not blocked, if you have nostrils and they're not fully blocked, in through the nostrils filters, humidifies the air, cleansing it, making it healthy. So, but breathing out through your mouth at times moves your diaphragm more easily. Experiment with both as you go through phase shift. So, again, tongue to the roof of the mouth. Good. Once more, tongue to the roof of the mouth. And now we're going to do something fun. I love this part because, like a little child, if we're childlike and play, we're often going to find that our brain finds safety, security, and frees up. It's more resilient as well. This is the vocalization part. Roger Love, credit to you for all you do. We're going to put a spin on that with the floor of the mouth and phase shift. These movements are designed to free the floor of your mouth with just sound. So some of you, if you put your fingers beside your throat where the thyroid gland is, also the vocal cords, you're going to feel the vibration of the voice as you do this 2 for 1. You're freeing your thyroid, which is one of the 4 areas that influence the floor of the mouth. And you're also able to feel what's happening with the vocalizations. So let's just say the word jaw. Say the word jaw. And you notice that I'm elaborating on, emphasizing, drawing out the syllable of the middle syllable. Well, there's one syllable, right? So jaw. So just allow that word to elongate. Jaw. But now I'm going to ask you to feel what happens here. And also feel the back of the floor of your mouth curl down. Say jaw, jaw. But I'm going to have you say a couple other words that'll make it a little easier. Say awesome, awesome. Now just say the word aw, aw. Some of you get it. Oh, you're going to feel this curl. Some of you aren't feeling that yet due to some different aspects of anatomy. So then if you say, like the word, or cup, but take away the C and go, notice your eyebrows go up, the floor goes down, but you feel it here. Those are sounds that help. Now, this is the fun one. I'm going to throw this one in there. Who all knows what a donkey sounds like, right? Hee-haw, hee-haw. That part right there, the haw, absolutely frees the floor of your mouth like no other sound out there. So if somebody's calling you a donkey, say thank you. I'm in phase shift and I'm freer than ever. So hee-haw. But if you want to go back to the state of awe, the state of amazement and wonder at what your body's feeling and experiencing, say awesome, awesome. And if you don't know if you're doing this correctly, keep with it. You're going to feel it over time, not just in the floor of your mouth, not just in your tongue, your cranial bones, your face, but your whole being. So now we'll come back to our tongue and put it back up to the roof of the mouth. And we're going to finalize and end here by moving your tongue on the roof of your mouth and mapping it back and forth, front and back. and then feel the floor of your mouth with the tip of your tongue. And then tongue up to the roof and open your mouth for that stretch. And hold that for a few seconds and notice the change, how free it is now. But more than that, pan out. Sometimes you need to close your eyes. Feel your feet touching the ground and feel where they're making contact, perhaps in a way they weren't before, or the state of ease that you have when you tap in and tune in to your whole body as one. And then just be grateful that you made it and you've done phase shift for the first time. And I am so glad that you made it.
That was amazing, Neel. And I'm very impressed doing this alongside you, almost like a mirror. You've been doing this for a while because your tongue to the roof of the mouth, open mouth is impressive. And mine's half the openness, and it was like crooked. I was like, wow, you got this going on. That was great.
Yeah.
That was really, really helpful, I think, for everybody, because now when they use this auditorially, they can be like, okay, I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to do it. So thank you very much for walking us through the phase shift and the exercise itself. This is very curious. The whole topic's been curious, and I know our listeners are really engaged in thinking through this, and it's creating a lot of wow and aha and who knew. Can you give us some examples of aha or wow moments you've had working with people? Because that's fun to hear stories of, whether it was an expectation you had or you're just like, wow, I didn't know that we could do this, or the impact that your work's had on some of your clients. I think that would be really helpful for us to hear some of your cool stories.
Yeah, because this started out with my daughter, I'm going to tell a story of a baby and a quick story, but then I'm going to tell one of, at least several adults that I know that would be great examples of what we're talking about. Well, lactation consultant sent in this baby who is experiencing feeding issues, already had a tongue tie surgery. The body work wasn't quite helping that they had. Lactation consultant Ina Henry said, I need a miracle. The parents have learned by now to say, she said you can do miracles, no pressure. And I'm like, none taken, but I will give you what I have. So one instance that comes to mind is baby had stopped breastfeeding, wasn't able to extract milk. By working through the same principles that we talked about, that I just led you on, this phase shift, found those few key areas in the body that were holding tension, released them. The floor of the mouth dropped, tongue moved more easily. Little baby's body went into this supple state, fell asleep. Well, that was great, right? In the moment, I'm happy for that. But to get a text message from both lactation consultant and mom saying, after so long and so much stress and not being able to feed, not being able to get the nourishment, baby is back breastfeeding again and no issues with the latch. So that will almost always be my biggest aha moment, is every single baby that can feed again to get the milk they need, because I know that as a dad, but I also know that as journeying with so many families that we need air. Yes. But you know what? For a baby, air is fine. Milk. We need that milk. So that's one. Now, some of you know Ben Greenfield. He's was excited for me to be able to share some more with you all about what we did together. And Ben Greenfield, performance, biohacker optimizer. He was the poster boy of Spartan races. When I first saw him, I knew we were going to work on some areas that dealt with his airway, with his kidneys. Let's just say I had a clue. But when I got to him, and he told me about his knee, his left knee that was experiencing a lot of pain, struggle, but he didn't tell me about his toe. When I asked him about his big toe, I'm like, what's going on with your toe? He said, oh, I didn't even tell you about that because I lost, not even expecting you to do anything with that. Well, like he says, through working with the floor of his mouth, his tongue, some other areas, it freed up so much tension in his body. He says he gained a half a foot of mobility of his inner thigh muscles, meaning if he's lying on his back and he's going into that split stretch, he gained 6 inches of mobility. But you know what? Mobility is awesome. And as dancers, you want that. And athletes and mixed martial artists, and you just want that. But when his left knee, which was about a half an inch out of alignment, shifted into alignment because of the floor of his mouth freeing before he even touched his kneecap, he was amazed. Not only that, he had such a shift in pain, reduction, and an increase in mobility and strength that he was pretty amazed. But we spent 45 minutes on his toe, and he said he never knew his toe was helpable again, or that it could be salvaged in terms of its mobility. Once we got his toe moving, it helped. You might think the toe is like an important thing, but some of you out there, you might be a movement wizards, or if the big toe can't move, your glutes can't fire, sciatica flares, and your low back aches and hurts. The big toe moving is the antidote for so many back issues. Not only that, the same nerves that control the low back and the toe also power the colon and the gut. So that also helped Ben get toxins out better than ever. He texted me the next day to say he was amazed with how much his bowel movements freed up from that. So one more person, which actually leads me closer to you, Jim, is Darren O'Lean. Some of you guys might know Darren O'Lean. He's amazing documentary expert, superfood hunter all over the planet. He's just an amazing person. I went to his yurt in Malibu and spent a few hours with him, worked on his body, and he was telling me all about the intraoral work that he had, all the craniosacral, all the energy. I mean, he's been to all places on the planet, and I've learned from him through afar for many years. But when on the table, he said, whoa, like he just experienced the floor of his mouth moving, being supple, the tongue freeing up, his cranial shifting. He said, whoa, that reminds me of when he had such freedom through a freeing moment in therapy and mental health issues. Like he's just a person like anybody that's always going for the next. So when I say that, I just mean he was brought back to when he had such a psycho-emotional release that it brought him amazement. So I feel like this is about the physical body, yes, but it's actually more about not just the air we get and the feeding we need when we're talking about little babies, but it's about a different state of mind, a perceptual change that unshackles our brain and our bodies to be able to feel more, to be aware more, to be more present, and to actually take stock of who we are and have a self-knowing. So, you know what, the reason I mentioned that brought me one step closer to you is because it was after my time with Darren, and after hearing your podcast episode with him, it's like a couple years ago, I was amazed by your compassion, Jim. You were so provoked to provide Newcom to the people who had experienced, this was maybe a year and a half ago, the fire of LA, the LA fires. You wanted to give away Newcom for those people. You know, what struck me as I thought about all those people breathing in that toxic air, and it's like, well, at least if we breathe in through our nostrils, we'll have cleaner air than if we breathe in through our mouths. That's why I got a hold of you. That's why I emailed your team. And your team responded, and you did. I said, you know what? Some people are walking around and they can't breathe in through their nostrils, and they have no idea that the issue is their tongue. And more than that, that the issue is the floor of their mouth. And more than that, that the issue is everywhere in their bodies. So I would love to talk with you about how I can partner with you to bring those people and more the ability to breathe in through their nostrils. You said I'm interested. And I'm just so thankful, because that's why we're here today. It's because when you said yes.
Well, I said yes, but you asked. For our listeners, it'd be hard to overstate the amount of work that we do on product development and innovation. But think about this. For 17 years, we've been serving humanity with applied neuropsychobiology. And in those 17 years, we have chosen with great judiciousness 6 people to collaborate with. In 2017 was our first collaboration. It was sports oriented. It was with Tony Robbins and the Washington Capitals. And the next year with Tony Robbins and the Golden State Warriors. Then it was in 2022 that we recorded 9 specific programs with Jim Quick in the studio with Dan Celine and Keith in Utah. Then it was last year that you and I were riffing and talking through things. And you said to me, I think you were manifesting this. We launched Roger Love's collaboration, Voice Coaching with Roger, in September. And you called me and says, hey, I love the Power Trio. I want in. I want to be a part of that. So everything has kind of really come together as it should. And if you think about it, we now have a phase shift and an opportunity to do work in our mouth, free up some of the challenges and the structural issues in the mouth, free up some of the musculature here and the breath work, and then collaborate with the voice and extend and accentuate our communication. So it's been a real pleasure to work with you. And I will share with the audience this. I've had the pleasure to work with Neel twice in person. Once was in Los Angeles and once was in Santa Barbara. And it's definitely odd to be in a hotel room with a man putting his hands in your mouth. And it is incredible. The work that was done. For me, my twin brother, David, we're broken. We're not broken in spirit. We're not broken in mind, but having wrestled and done martial arts and football and hockey and all the things that we've done, if we can't hurt you doing something, we're not going to do it. So our body is like Evel Knievel minus the fame and fortune. When you worked on me last, you said, hey, Jim, your left knee is a ½ inch longer than your right. I was like, well, that probably explains something. He didn't work on my knee, ladies and gentlemen. He worked on the floor of my mouth. And he was able to realign my body by working here. That's amazing to me. And then it frees up the release of pain, the endorphins, the oxytocin, the relaxation. So if you combine this work with nervous system balance, you are putting yourself in a position for amazing mental, physical, and psychological health and well-being and getting out of this trap. You know, the world's in chaos today. We're in crisis. We know this. But the world being in crisis doesn't mean your brain needs to be in crisis. Your nervous system does not need to be in crisis. You have choices. And I know it's not easy because it's hard to find things that actually work. But it's fun knowing that we're in the tribe of people finding things. Darren O'Lean, I hold in high regard. Ben Greenfield, I hold in high regard. Neel, I hold in high regard. So we're finding the path of the righteousness and truth in this journey. But we are blessed and very happy to have you as part of the family and honored to bring you on as our 6th world-class collaborator. So, ladies and gentlemen, Inside Priming, as of today, you have an introduction from Neel Bulchandani. You also have a phase shift from Neel Bulchandani, which he went through the actual work tonight.